Observation. Conservative is given, observation is also given. Okay, then it is conservative. I mean, in the sense, operation is not required. That's what is required. Finally, that need to be understood. What is the most common benign tumor, doctor? You can come across this kind of lesions in the liver. Immediately tomorrow as a radiologist, don't try to report hepatocellular carcinoma in the patient. Hemangiomas can occur as incidentalomas in the liver is what you should not basically forget. So, are you able to see, doctor, in the liver the classical lesion of the hemangioma? Yes. Regarding congenital dislocation of the hip joint, Ortolani's, Barlow's, Galeazzi test is done. Acute osteomyelitis is on treatment and after 48 hours he is not recovering, then do you want to do surgical decompression? No more waiting is important. In a patient with subtrochanteric fracture, what will be the position of the proximal fragment? One of the very important question. What is your possible answer, doctor? There are certain important muscles which are attached to the proximal fragment and they will be pulling onto their side. Now, what muscles are attached? Psoas is a very important muscle which is attached. That's the reason, doctor, psoas becomes a deforming force. It will cause the proximal fragment to go into a flexion and external rotation. In the case of the subtrochanteric fracture is what need to be basically remembered. So, external rotation is one of the reasonable conclusion regarding the position of the proximal fragment is what need to be remembered. I could not get about this disc prolapse. What is the possible answer you can give me? What is your major consensus? One side of the cauda equina, then in which patient, which side will be the limp? Acha. Okay, we'll just take up this question at a later point. Triple arthrodesis is a very standard question, all of you know very well. Trendelenburg's, yeah, this is a very challenging question. First of all, options are same. You are very sure it is our baby only. Then let us look into it. Subluxation of the hip or dislocation of the hip, any abductor weakness, any shortening of the femoral neck, any painful hip disorder. Now I like to ask a question. Perthes osteochondritis, is it painful or painless? It is typically painless is what need to be remembered, doctor. Painless limp is a very characteristic feature. Hence, the odd man out is Trendelenburg's and is not seen in the Perthes. In all the remaining conditions you can find the Trendelenburg positive is what need to be remembered. Pelvic harness is typically used in the case of the congenital dislocation. So let us make the start of the today's session, doctor, with what we left yesterday. Electric bulb sign on the radiograph, in which clinical condition do you come across? This had been a question, at least this topic is a standard topic. That is the posterior dislocation of the shoulder. I like to ask a question, is posterior dislocation or anterior dislocation, which is more common, doctor? Anterior. Only two conditions where you need to remember posterior can occur, epilepsy, and if you give an electroconvulsive shock, that also is a risk factor. Now let us look into what is this electric bulb sign basically. During the posterior dislocation, the osteochondral impression fracture will be forming, and that will give you a typical lesion called reverse Hill-Sachs lesion is what I want to underscore to all of you. What is this basically? The anterior aspect of the humeral head will become impacted onto the posterior aspect of the glenoid, and that will give you a reverse Hill-Sachs. Actual Hill-Sachs you find anterior dislocation. Reverse Hill-Sachs is what you see in the posterior dislocation. There are three classical standard views for looking at the radiographically the posterior dislocation. AP view, the AP view is one of the standard view, oblique view and axillary view, rather the lateral view and the axillary view, they are the three important views. What is this AP view? Generally AP view looks normal, but one classical feature is the anterior part of the humeral head is inside the joint and the posterior part comes outside of it, and typically the internal rotation of the humerus, it become little accentuated in the cases of posterior dislocation, and because of that this humeral head comes into a fixed position onto the posterior glenoid rim, which is one of the important features need to be identified on the AP radiograph. Number two, the glenoid becomes vacant because of this dislocation. It's called a vacant glenoid sign, where the anterior glenoid fossa becomes totally empty, which is appreciated on the AP radiographs. Then this humeral head which got dislocated becomes very prominent and it looks like an electric bulb. That's called as the electric bulb sign in the case of the posterior dislocation of the hip joint, of the shoulder joint. One more important sign called the rim sign, that is between the anterior glenoid rim and the humeral head about 6 millimeters of gap become created, and that is called as the rim sign. Probably 4 years back when we were teaching, we were only talking about these things. Where you are imagining, I am also imagining. So now let us see really practical, that is evidence based. Fundamentally, if you understood the concept with clarity, with evidence based manner, it's very easy to answer the questions. Only if you try to remember, hallucinate, and we need to imagine more and do less, then all these problems will come. So let us be little more practical, doctor. This is the typical radiograph in the case of, you are able to see from last? This is the typical radiograph. What you can see here is the anterior rim of the glenoid fossa and the medial aspect of the humeral head. There is an increased discrepancy which is called as the positive rim sign in the case of this positive rim sign. Normally these two are not separated from each other, that is the anterior rim of the glenoid fossa and the medial aspect of the humeral head. But in this dislocation it becomes visible. It's called the positive rim sign. Number two, in the posterior dislocation, typically this dislocated humeral head will be looking very prominent, the humeral head, and that gives you the typical electric bulb-like appearance. One more sign called trough line, which you see in the case of the posterior dislocation of the shoulder joint. Typically a vertical line become created because of the impaction fracture of the humeral head, which will be commonly associated with the posterior dislocation, which is called as the trough line, is what you have to basically appreciate. And similarly, you can appreciate a double cortical surface along the medial surface of the humeral head. Generally this kind of two cortical surfaces are not generally seen. So appearance of this kind of two cortical signs is called the trough sign typically, which is seen in the case of the posterior dislocation of the shoulder joint. And a curvilinear opacity will be spanning across the metaphysis of the proximal humerus. It is because this proximal humerus goes into an internal rotation when there is a posterior dislocation, and because of this curvilinear opacity across the metaphysis become very prominent. Another radiological sign par excellence in the case of the posterior dislocation. So the electrical bulb and the humeral head should not be forgotten, which become very prominent when you take the radiograph in the case of the posterior dislocation, is what I want to underscore. Now, is there any advantage of the axillary view? If you, in the case of the posterior dislocation, generally the shoulder joint will be very painful and it is very difficult to take the axillary view because abduction become very much limited. But there is something called a modified axillary view. By doing this axillary view, there is one advantage. At least radiologically you can estimate what is the size of that anteromedial defect which is created by this humeral head when it got dislocated only by the axillary view. Then the third important view is called the lateral scapular view. That is, in this, the humeral head atypically will be anterior to the glenoid in the case of the posterior, in the case of the anterior dislocations, and it will be posterior to the glenoid in the case of the posterior dislocation. So by looking at the relationship of the humeral head to the glenoid cavity, you can be able to identify as to how is the dislocation. So this is a third important view called the lateral scapular view. So finally, you need to remember the story, and at the end of it you need to know electrical bulb sign is seen in the case of the posterior dislocation. Anyway, we will discuss it in more detail in orthopedics when we take up. But because tomorrow in the exam, a positive rim sign, where is it seen, will come. 100 times you read in a small mnemonic kind of book, positive rim sign, you will never remember. So there's a reason, doctor, take every opportunity. Patient comes to tomorrow, the casualty. Once more you start revising all these things, catching up the radiograph, looking where is the glenoid cavity, where is the humeral head, is there any electrical bulb appearing, everything will appear. Actually patients will have commonly all these problems. So there's a reason, doctor, preparation and practice are inseparable is a very important rule that has to be basically understood. Now let's go to the next question regarding retinoscus, which is the true statement. Generally few topics like retinal detachment, retinoscus, we try to be not as sure as what we are with the CMDT in general medicine. but definitely it is required. What is this retinoscus basically? Before I start, I'll give a short case presentation. That's an easier way of learning. A 52-year-old professional mourner, at least in India, children will mourn if somebody dies, parents die. But in US and West, they will even employ a fellow to come and mourn when there is a death. So a professional mourner has noted that he is having the blurring of vision in both the eyes. Generally he used to travel by bus, reach the funeral, there he used to mourn. That is what he used to do as a profession. He has got a difficulty reading the bus signs, and he is not wearing any glasses, and he is also reporting that there are a lot of flashing lights in the superior visual field in his right eye. This professional mourner, when he was subjected to the fundoscopic examination, but before that we need to check his visual fields by doing the confrontation test. What is confrontation test? You will sit before the patient. You will say that, tell me the moment the finger movement is appearing before you. Basically, examiner is expected to have a good visual field. He should not have a mourner's eye. So, when examiner is fine, suddenly he is not able to see in one of the fields. So, it is a simple bedside test by which you can be able to know which visual field is defective.